Congressman Guy Reschenthaler is a Republican from Pennsylvania, and he attended yesterday's inauguration. He joins us now live on the program. Thanks for coming on this morning. I'll ask you, of course, you were joined with some politicians, a handful of Hollywood celebrities, and, of course, a big military presence in D.C. yesterday. What was it like to attend the inauguration in person?
Well, Emma, first off, thanks for having me on, and as always, just call me Guy.
Sure.
But yesterday's inauguration, it was historic. It was an inauguration, transfer of power, so I'm glad I was there. But I can tell you that the hypocrisy ran deep, and you saw that with the walls around Washington, D.C. and the Capitol complex. And let me explain that. On the same day that we had the inauguration with the walls and the barricades around the Capitol complex, Joe Biden signed an executive order to stop construction and tear down the wall on our southern border. So how hypocritical is that, saying that if you're a member of the ruling elite in this country, you can have walls, but if you're a small border town dealing with the cartels and the violence that comes with that, you can't have a wall? How hypocritical is it that these ruling elites live in private gated communities, yet you who are in the suburbs, you can't have walls, or if you're in a border town, you can't have walls? And what about firearms? They have bodyguards that have firearms, that have AR-15s. But if you're a single mother in a dangerous neighborhood, you can't have a handgun. They don't like that. So, Emma, it just goes to show the hypocrisy, and it shows that for these liberal progressives, there's only one standard, and it's a double standard.
Well, we watched all summer as people called to defund the police. And of course, we're hearing a unified gratitude for the police in our nation's capital right now. Let's talk about the speech that Joe Biden made yesterday, where he called for unity, of course, but also appeared to call out those who he described as extremists. Watch.
A rise of political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism, that we must confront and we will defeat.
Now, some online were considering that line was targeting Trump supporters. Is that how you interpreted it?
Well, if you look at the language from the left, there's clearly a widening view of who exactly is a domestic terrorist. We have to remember that the Tea Party activists were vilified back in the 2008, 2010 timeline. It's interesting. Again, I go back to the double standard. When we had George W. Bush, the cool thing was to resist. That was very righteous. And then we had Obama. And if you were a protester, you were labeled as a political dissident. Then we had Donald Trump. And it was not only righteous to protest and resist and put on those the resist bumper stickers on your car. If you didn't do that, then you weren't woke enough. And now we have Joe Biden coming into office talking about domestic terrorism. So we should be troubled by this. But Emma, let me just go back again to the unity message from Joe Biden. I read that in two ways. Number one, he's really talking about unity within the Democrat Party. And I'm not talking unity between the blue dog Democrats and liberals. There are no blue dog Democrats anymore. They've all switched parties. They're now Republicans. He's really talking about unity between the liberals and the socialists, between the old school hardcore leftist Democrats and the new woke Democrats that are coming in. That's the unity Joe Biden wants. And when he's talking about unity for the general public, he really means conformity. If you don't conform to their wokeness, if you don't exude their talking points or their values, then you're canceled. And just in the clip that you were playing before I came on, talking about President Trump being kicked off Twitter and Facebook permanently, that's going to happen to all of us. They're going to try to cancel anyone who doesn't comply, who doesn't, quote unquote, unify behind Biden-Harris. This is a real threat to our public discourse. It's a threat to our democracy. And the fact that people are not talking about it is very troubling to me, Emma.
Well, what you're saying sounds very scary. What you're alleging could happen is very scary, because you would want Americans to express their views, even if they are different, and be able to do so because of the First Amendment. But I want to show you what's happening on YouTube for the White House account, where they are not allowing anyone to comment on the inauguration video. In fact, they've just completely shut it down. So even if you were going to say, this is the best day ever, congratulations, Joe Biden, you wouldn't be able to. Or if you were to criticize the president, of course, you wouldn't be able to either. Is that the direction you think this administration is heading?
We're already on the track. Not only is this the direction, we're already We're already on this path. So just as Biden Harris wouldn't allow individuals to comment on the posts on YouTube, they don't want major networks to have a platform, right? They took off Parler because it was a place where it was a platform they couldn't control, where people came to have open, free discussions. They don't want Comcast and Verizon to carry Newsmax. They're already calling for that. They've come out and they've shadow banned political officials. I believe I've been shadow banned. If you look at the data, they certainly did not allow me to retweet an article from the New York Post, the oldest newspaper in the United States. So we've already gone down this road, Emma. It's a question of how long can they get away with it? Will we stand up and say, look, we want freedom of speech. We want a robust discussion. And the way you combat speech that you don't agree with is not to shut that speech down. That's what you see in places like communist China and in Red Russia. The way that Americans in a free state deal with speech that we don't like is we have more speech, and we drowned out the speech we don't agree with the speech that we do agree with. Biden Harris in this new liberal progressive wing in the party, they don't want that. They want cancel culture, and they want to silence anybody that doesn't, not only people that disagree with them, but those that just don't evoke the woke culture and the woke talking points that they want. It's got to that point, Emma, and we should all be very concerned about it.
Well, that's a fair question that I would like to ask the now current press secretary, Jen Psaki. And she was asked this question last night from a reporter saying that President Biden promised to end all new oil and gas leasing on federal lands when he was a candidate. Does the administration still have that commitment today to end the lease? She responded saying, quote, "We do. And the leases will be reviewed by our team. We've just been in office for less than a day now." Now, Guy, when I think of that, my mind goes to fracking, right? And the banning of fracking. Of course, this is a key issue in your state. It was something that Joe Biden had previously said he would do. And then when asked about it, he said, no, I never said that. Turns out they're going through with it. Your thoughts?
Of course. So I predicted there'd be a war on fracking and war on natural gas before Biden was elected. And the fact that you had an executive order that was signed yesterday to shut down the Keystone Pipeline shows you that. So it's not only a war on fracking, it's also going to hurt us in terms of national security, because it's going to make us more dependent on foreign oil from places like the Middle East, Venezuela, and elsewhere, not natural gas from places like Western Pennsylvania. It's also an attack, I think, on the working class, on the guy that is working on a fracking site in Oklahoma or in West Virginia. They don't like those individuals. This has really become almost a class warfare between the Zoom class, the smug liberal who sits at home on Zoom calls all day, and those that actually work for a living, those that get a shower after work. They have a disdain for people who work for a living. If you shop at Walmart, if you go to eat at Cracker Barrel, if you enjoy hunting with your kids, if you go to church on Sunday, they have disdain for you, Emma, and we're seeing more of this. So it's an economic and a cultural war that Joe Biden is now launching. And these executive orders he signed yesterday, it's just the start of it.
That is Congressman Guy Reschenthaler of Pennsylvania joining us on the program this morning, Congressman. As always, we appreciate it. Take care.